have the foundation of the State of Israel in 1949. And so this inevitably takes on a huge significance for dispensationalist theology, for any Protestant that's following this dispensationalist movement, where they come to see this as the kind of the beginning of the end, that God is kind of like, okay, so we're really on the threshold of the second coming now, because the Jews are now actively returning to Israel. So, in fairness, almost inevitably, it's consistent, right? It's logically consistent. If you have this theology that places a huge emphasis on the Jews and their return to Israel, and then the Jews start to return to Israel, you say, okay, well then this is a really important event in our religion as Christians. And so they develop what is called the ideology of Christian Zionism. Christian Zionism is just what it sounds like. It's a form of dispensationalism that believes, and it's the dominant form of dispensationalism. It's almost ubiquitous. I mean, there's virtually no evangelical Christians that are not Christian Zionists, which says that because this is an inevitable step, a necessary step towards the second coming, Christians are duty bound to support the return of the Jews to Israel, and to support the state of Israel, to protect the state of Israel, and to support its expansion, because this brings about the second coming. Importantly and closely related to this is the dispensationalist belief that because the Jews endure as a separate and distinct covenant and endure in their own relationship with God, that Zion, as it's discussed in the Bible, is not referring to the church, but it's referring to it continues to refer to ethnic Jews. And so there is a belief in the necessity of the fulfillment of the promises that have been made to the ethnic Jews. So whereas traditional Orthodox Christians see all the promises that God makes to Israel in the Old Testament being fulfilled in the church, this is for most evangelical Protestants, for Christian Zionists, everything that God says about Israel in the Old Testament applies to the modern state of Israel. God is anticipating the foundation of Israel in 1949. All of the Old Testament is basically talking about that event. And so that's where you get Ambassador Huckabee saying, well, yeah, Israel's entitled to all this land. That's what the Bible says. How can you argue with the Bible? It's one of these problems that our Protestant friends have, where they have a very short memory. So from the year 33 to 1949, obviously Christians had no sense that any of these prophecies could possibly be fulfilled by a literal Jewish state in Palestine. Obviously, they believed not only because Christ said that the church is the new, or in St. Paul said that the church is Zion, and the church is the true Israel of God, etc. But also because this was simply not it was like an impossible geopolitical situation. It could never have been. But again, because our Protestant friends are so good at reinventing themselves and have such a short theological historical memory, for them, I mean, church history essentially begins in 1949. Mm-hmm. Because for them the Old Testament is not even so much about the coming of Jesus Christ as it is about the coming of the state of Israel. You can see why that would that would have a huge implications for not only for your theology and for your religion, but also for geopolitics.